Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip. My role is to chair this session, which is session 7 for communal rangelands. Before I start with my chairing, I would like to congratulate Percy for his new name, that guy. I'm the one who called him that guy. The time other people were asking me where are they supposed to go for registration, those who came late. I say to that guy. Okay. Without wasting time, then I will call our first presenter, Wine Queen. Okay. It's an online presentation.
Good afternoon, I'm Wayne Twine, and I'll be presenting a review of the contribution of the African Journal of Range and Forage Science to advancing knowledge on the human dimensions of African rangelands. Rangelands are complex multifunctional systems supporting multiple uses and diversified livelihoods. The past 2 decades have thus seen growing recognition of rangelands as coupled socio-ecological systems, in which social and ecological actors and processes influence each other in complex ways. Understanding both the ecological and the social nature of these systems is important for strengthening rangeland management, monitoring, and policy formulation for improved resource management and human welfare. However, there is widespread agreement in the international literature that while substantial advances have been made in understanding ecological dimensions of rangeland management, social dimensions are understudied. Although the number of social studies have increased steadily over the past 4 decades, the involvement of social science research in rangeland management remains limited. There is not only a gap between the natural and social sciences, but also between Western and local understandings. Various authors have thus called for greater inclusion of social research in rangeland science. For 58 years, the Grassland Society of Southern Africa has been contributing to scholarship in range and pasture science through its journal, starting with the proceedings of the annual Congress of the Grassland Society of Southern Africa, followed by the Journal of the Grassland Society of Southern Africa, and finally, the African Journal of Range and Forage Science. While the main focus is on biophysical sciences, the journal does encourage articles that highlight, and I quote, transdisciplinary linkages among biophysical and social sciences that support management, policy, and societal values. Against this backdrop, this review assesses the contribution of the journal to advancing knowledge on the human dimensions of African rangelands. A systematic review approach was used in the study. A list of 25 search words or phrases applicable to the topic of inquiry was developed. An advanced document search of paper titles and author keywords, including any of these search terms, was conducted using Taylor and Francis Online and Scopus databases for the period 1966 to 2023. Titles and abstracts in the resulting list of papers were screened for inappropriate papers which were removed from the database. For analysis, firstly, the final set of papers were categorized according to the focal tenure system of this paper, be it communal, private, both, or unstated. For quantitative analyses, the frequency of the papers published per year and the total and annual frequency of each of the search terms, author keywords, and land tenure category were calculated. The annual frequency results were aggregated into 5-year pentads for easier detection of patterns over time, given the relatively low sample size of papers over years. Qualitatively, the knowledge contributions of the body of work and of individual journal special issues were assessed with the help of ChatGPT-4 AI tool, which was used to derive a short summary of 2 to 3 sentences for the conclusion or concluding paragraphs of the discussion of each paper. The resulting summaries were compared to each abstract to check for inconsistencies and were adjusted as needed. A synthesis of themes and insights emerging from the conclusion summaries across all papers was then conducted, again using ChatGPT-4. The AI summary of the themes was reviewed and edited. The summaries of the relevant papers per special issue were synthesized manually. I will be presenting the results in the following three sections. Firstly, the incidence and evolution of social contributions over time, then the qualitative review of emerging themes and insights, and finally, the contribution of journal special issues. So firstly, looking at the trends over time. The first paper with a clearly identified social dimension was by Broom, 1975, which examined the economic aspects of beef intensification, focusing on factors such as capital, labor, management time, and the organizational capacity of farmers. Since 1975, a total of 73 papers addressing social aspects have been published in the Society Journal. This averages to 1.52 papers per year. However, as expected, papers were not evenly distributed across years, with the period 1975 to 2003 being characterized by a gradual increase in papers before the surge in numbers in 2004 to 2008. Importantly, many or most of the papers in 2003, 4, 13, 18, 22, and 2023 appeared in special issues of the journal, which I will refer to later. Finally, the increase in number of papers in the period 2019 to 2023, after the disappointing lull from 2014 to 2018, is encouraging. The most common search term in paper titles or keywords was communal, with 28 incidences, the most coinciding with year pentads incorporating conference proceedings and special issues. Communal was followed in a distant second place by livelihood and in third place by pastoral, and the full list of 23 search terms which appeared in at least one paper are listed in the figure on your screen. Communal was the most common search term, spiking in 3 of the 4 last pentads between 2004 and 2023. Papers mentioning livelihoods first appeared in 2003 and are present in the remaining 4 pentads. We also see the emergence of socio-ecological in the mid-2000s, in step with the emergence of socio-ecological thinking in the international rangeland literature. Both knowledge and institutions also feature in 3 of the last 4 pentads. The most common author keywords in these 73 papers were firstly livestock, followed by management, and in third place, communal. Looking now to tenure context, papers focusing on human dimensions in communal lands are not a recent occurrence, with the first paper appearing in 1990 by Buenzaya et al. However, the real surge of papers set in communal lands occurred in the period 2004 to 2008, and it remained the dominant setting thereafter, except for the lull in 2014 to 18, which was dominated by papers with the tenure system unspecified. Turning to the qualitative review of emerging themes and insights, a final list of 10 key themes emerged from the conclusions of the full body of work. Unfortunately, I don't have time to describe the key insights under each theme, but these themes were socio-ecological relationships, community involvement and empowerment, economics and livelihoods, adaptive management, indigenous knowledge and practices, climate change impacts and adaptation, monitoring, extension, land tenure, property rights and governance, and finally, policy. However, in summary, research published by the Society Journal over the last 5 decades demonstrates how rangeland management faces complex challenges that interweave ecological, socio-economic, and cultural dynamics. The insights from this research can be summed up in the following statement. Effective rangeland management hinges on the integration of scientific research, local knowledge, adaptive and participatory approaches, and supportive government policies that recognize the multifaceted nature of rangelands as socio-ecological systems. These are not unique insights, but they resonate with the state of knowledge on the social dimensions of rangelands internationally, and they provide an important African perspective on these issues. Finally, the quantitative contribution of journal special issues was highlighted earlier, and their qualitative contribution is very briefly summarized below on the screen. The first was papers from the proceedings of the 7th International Rangeland Congress in 2003, spanning volumes 20 and 21. These provide insights on a range of topics such as enabling frameworks, tenure, livelihoods and sustainable development, management for sustainable use, fragmentation of rangelands and the economic implications, and rangeland auditing and monitoring. In 2013, we have the special issue on aligning policy with the socio-ecological dynamics of rangeland commons, which is volume 30. This provides a consolidation of the then current insights and scholarly thought on sustainable livelihoods, traditional governance systems, land reform, and the diverse and dynamic nature of communal rangelands. The core of this special issue was a position paper written by Susie Vetter, and it's important to note that this paper has been cited 66 times and is the 11th most highly cited paper published by the journal. Thirdly, we have the Peru special issue, volume 35. This highlights the need for collaborative efforts between social and natural scientists to address contemporary challenges in the Peru's socio-ecological systems. Then volume 39 was a special issue on fire, friend or foe, lessons from a century of evidence-based fire management in grassy ecosystems. This really makes the case for understanding fire-prone landscapes as socio-ecological systems, and also focuses on development of policies, responsible journalism, and resilient communities that balance the ecological needs for fire and the need to protect lives and property. Then in volume 40, we have African rangelands and pastoralism in a changing continent, perspectives and opportunities. And this provides a regional view on the evolving dynamics influencing how rangelands across the continent are perceived, valued, developed, and managed. So in conclusion, the GSSA Journal has made a useful contribution to advancing knowledge on the human dimensions of African rangelands, especially in communal areas. This research has contributed to a shift from a purely technical focus in rangeland management to a more holistic approach that also addresses socio-economic issues. While not being a leader in this domain internationally, it does bring an important African perspective. The journal has not necessarily made substantial novel contributions to theory, but it has been instrumental in promoting socio-ecological thinking in our community of praxis, and in normalizing consideration of socioeconomic dimensions in rangeland management research, praxis, and policy in Southern Africa. And reflecting on the trends in publications over years, I make two observations. Firstly, the observed waves of research and popularity of terms and themes over time highlight the reality that progress is not linear in this research, and this suggests the need to potentially ride the waves as they emerge. These results suggest that deepening the understanding of social dimensions requires reminders and conscious efforts, such as special issues. This brings me to the second point. The findings of this review underscore the significance of journal special issues in this context. Even when the theme of the special issue is not solely or even mainly social. Therefore, the ongoing release of special issues is recommended. Final reflections focus on some potentially fruitful avenues for future socio-ecological research published by the journal, which are listed on the slide, and I won't read through them. So looking to the future, I think there is every indication that the journal will continue to contribute useful scholarship on the social dimensions of African rangelands and their management. I thank you for your attention.
Time for questions. You can just raise up your hand. That's that.
Thank you for the very useful review. I hope it will guide a lot of fruitful future research, especially. I just wanted to ask, did you perhaps test how ChatGPT compared to other AI tools such as Google, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot in generating summaries?
Thank you for that question. I didn't, and I think that would be a useful undertaking, because I think there's a lot of potential with these AI tools, but one does have to use them carefully and realize the strengths and the weaknesses of the different types of tools. So that's definitely something that I should consider going forward.
Hello, Wayne. This is Urs.
Hi, Urs. How are you?
Good. Hey, Wayne, I really appreciate you focusing on this increasing focus on the human dimensions in the journal. As you quoted, one of the areas that the journal really tries to promote is the intersection between the biophysical and the social economic aspects and sort of integrative work. The challenge for us is getting papers submitted and also having associate editors, etc. And I'm wondering if you can comment any thoughts about how we might be able to get more of these kind of publications submitted to the journal and incorporated in the journal.
That's a tough question, Urs. I mean, I think the point about special issues is one way of getting increased submission of these types of papers, because often these are topics that are multidimensional and therefore attract papers that also bring a social science perspective. But I do think we need to think about other innovative ways of encouraging more contributions of these from the social dimensions. So I don't have any silver bullet solution, but I'll certainly give it some thought and let you know if I come up with any other ideas.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Okay, let's move to our second presenter. Then Londiwe. She will be talking about exploring sustainable grassland management.
Hello. Good afternoon. I'm going to be talking about a very small portion of a WRC project that we submitted March of this year. Okay, now would be good. Oh, there. So our study area is located in northern KZN. It's called Umhlabyalingana. It's a rural area. And it is a groundwater driven system. So as you can see, that white part, there are no blue lines, no rivers. And it's gone through a rapid change of land use. As you can see, there's a lot of eucalyptus coming in, bush encroachment, as well as the lake levels declining, which is a good indicator of the groundwater system, which is a good indicator of the groundwater decline. We've also, with literature, we've also observed a drying trend with the rains, especially in the past 20 years, which spells a big problem for this area because it is a groundwater-driven system and it is recharged by localized rainfall. So if you're not getting rain, we are using a lot of we're using land in the most hydro-intensive way. This has created a lot of issues in the area, a lot of economic and ecological issues. We've also experienced the worst drought on record in 2015, 2016. And I mean, we do have future rainfall trends, but they're very uncertain. We don't know if we're going towards a warmer, wetter future or a warmer, drier future. So, and if you have these if you have these poor and vulnerable communities, it's very important to try and develop alternatives that are sustainable and climate resistant for them. So we developed this co-generative approach where we used the bottom-up approach. So we spoke to the communities, we learned from each other, and we tried to come up with alternative land uses that are sustainable and that will work for the communities. So like tailor making them to the ecosystem. So what we did was we had traditional councils workshops and household surveys where we tried to find what their challenges were, current economic activities, and their aspirations. So what do they want to do with their land economically in the future? So we use these to develop 4 scenarios that we would use with the communities, and 8 other scenarios that we would use on a hydrological model, which Sue will talk about more tomorrow. So the challenges were quite common in the traditional council workshops and the household surveys. But like the water security issue was quite a prominent issue in both the traditional council workshops and the household surveys, as well as, so there were a lot of issues that we grouped together as natural resources issues, and there were a lot more other issues, but we just chose these 4 as the most ranked ones. So the natural resource issues involved things like bush encroaching all the good grasslands that they use for grazing, all the wetlands in the good grasslands that they could use for grazing have dried up, so they can't use those areas for grazing because there's no water. The cattle will graze there and have to walk long distances to get to water sources. So then we also, so we wanted to get the perspective of the traditional councils and the households in terms of the most important economic activities. And we found that the traditional councils perceived that crafts and eucalyptus plantations were the 2 most important economic activities. But when we compare with the data from the household surveys, we found that the eucalyptus plantations were the least important, and employment by tourism and natural resources were the 2 most important. And by employment and tourism, we mean everything that has to do with tourism, selling of crafts to tourists and everything related like that. So we also had them draw these on these maps and draw up the future plans. So where do you want to put your things in the future? And we used these maps to develop these 8 scenarios that we would put on for hydrological modeling. We also developed these 4 scenarios for households to rank in terms of which scenario they find the most important. So the 4 scenarios are, so it's 2 different climatic scenarios and 2 different 2 different land use in terms of hydro intensive or less hydro intensive. So when we found that the most preferred scenario is the 3rd scenario, which is this one, which is the warmer, wetter climates with the less hydro-intensive land use. And then when we asked them, they like, why did they choose the scenario, and water availability or scarcity came up as the most important attribute when selecting the scenario, which there was and the scenario 1 and 2, which are hydro intensive with the eucalyptus and macadamia, were the least preferred scenarios, which shows a greater preference for a wetter future. We also wanted to get the perspective of the community in terms of land use, land cover change. And we found that they believe that wetland areas, grasslands for grazings have declined or decreased, and then indigenous bush, forestry, eucalyptus plantations, and human settlements have gone up. And this is actually the calculated land use, land cover change, which matches the community perceptions, because as you can see, there has been a decline in water surfaces here, and there's also been a decline in grasslands and an increase in plantations. And as the conversations go between us and the community, there's repeated concerns around bush encroachment, and like they relating that to how much they want to commercialize cattle, but all the good grazing lands have been bush encroached. So we decided to take one of the alternatives, or the aspirations, which is commercializing cattle, and we wanted to take it forward and see how we can make that a possibility for the community. So then we organized a knowledge exchange between the communities in Matatiele and the MCP communities with a few of our partners. And the reason why we chose Matatiele is because they have ERS, which is based in Matatiele, and they have a well-established work relationship with the community where they're working on ecological ecosystems health and rangeland management, and they were willing to host us for this. So the first day was around introducing the community to grazing camps and just general land management, rangeland management, I mean. And then on the second day was around animal husbandry, just learning from different farmers in the area. And the third day, we observed a mobile cattle auction. When it comes to the outcomes of the knowledge exchange for the Maputaland or the MCP community, they were very inspired, and compared to the negative attitude they had before that. And what they say that they learned is they learned the importance of working together, including the youth in everything that they do as the elderly traditional council, the importance of land use planning, because currently in the area they don't have any land use planning that's working. The importance of doing away with borders, they realized, so there are 3 different communities that we work with, and they are under 3 different tribal authority. So they realized that in order to make a difference or a change, they need to come together and work together. They realized the importance of working with researchers for informed decision making, and the importance of good governance and working with ward councillors. So adopting this co-generative approach has been quite eye-opening for us. It eliminated issues and opportunities that I don't think would have been revealed had we not had those back and forth conversations with the community. It was also humanizing for us, me and the team, and it has inspired me to work and work towards research that makes a difference on the ground with the people. And we just want to call everyone who wants to come to Maputaland and do research that makes a difference. I would like to invite you to our think tank. So if you are willing, please talk to me or Sue, and we can see how we can take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Londiwe. Time for questions for Londiwe. Yeah.
Thanks, Londiwe. Very interesting. And we've been doing quite a lot of that sort of work in Botswana as well. It's been quite eye-opening with communities and conservation. And I realize the importance of bottom-up approaches So it's great to see you doing that. And those plantations in those areas, are those community plantations, or is it big corporate plantations that are put in there? Who's benefiting from those plantations?
That's an interesting question. So it ranges. You do get the small plots that belong to the local communities, but a big like all the ones that I was showing in the map that expanded belong to TMM, which is the 3 traditional councils. So they have a Tembe, Mabasa, Mbila. So they have like a big business, and most of those they have shares on the big ones. So they're the one benefiting.
The community council benefits.
Not the council, but the kings.
Oh, yeah.
Commercial.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, you see, so that's where I see a major problem where elites benefit and elites in the community benefit and most of the community don't benefit. This is the same we see with conservation, you know, and so that's something that needs to really be addressed, because that's for the first thing. The community should put their foot down and say, we don't want those plantations. You know, they should have the power to do that. You know. Yeah.
One question more. One more question. If there's any, yes, feel free to go. Thank you. Question that side. Okay.
That has.
Sorry, just a comment from Wayne online. He says, I hope Londiwe and collaborators plan on submitting a paper on this work to the journal.
So it's a
smiley face.
Okay, thank you. We'll call our third presenter, who is Imanati Kekaya. She's is going to talk about the hydroponic barley fodder.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Imanati Kekaya, as I've been introduced, and today I'll be speaking to you about hydroponic barley fodder as a method to bridge the gap in the fodder gap in the arid rangelands of South Africa. So this study was prompted by the current climatic conditions, which have been projected to become even more unfavorable, where increased frequencies, as well as the duration and the intensities of drought are projected to become even worse. So it has been documented that in the past, during a drought period, the forage quality as well as the quantity is reduced, where feed gaps occur, especially for livestock farmers that rely on the rangeland for their livestock daily requirements. So this in turn results in lower nutrient availability for livestock, which results in reduced weight gain for livestock, as well as increases in diseases and pests. So in overall, the productivity of the livestock is reduced. So in dry croplands or in dry rangelands, there is unreliable rainfall as well as infrequent rainfall, where the amount is reduced. So in this case, planting crops becomes more risk, as there's no guaranteed returns. But however, in other areas there are ephemeral species that become available in the wet season, and these act as a good source of feed for livestock. But during a drought period, these become unavailable, and then this leads to more reduced livestock productivity, which has shown to have a negative effect which has shown to have a negative economic impact on rural communities, and which have been shown to already be food insecure and also live well below the poverty line. So in order for us to improve the livestock productivity in these areas, means that we need to look at the alternative methods of fodder production for livestock, and such as the hydroponics. So hydroponics is a method or is a process of growing feed without using soil, but you can only use water. And this method has using this method, hydroponic fodder can be produced from major feed grains such as barley, wheat, sorghum, as well as oats, and it can be produced over a short period of time. So with water being the most important part being the most important component in hydroponics, it is important that, or it is necessary that we look at the water quality so that we know we're producing fodder with high quality. And therefore, the aim of the study was to evaluate the impact of different water sources on the production potential, as well as the nutritional quality of hydroponically produced fodder. And then from there, we compare that just to see the value that the hydroponics adds to the diets of the rangelands. We compare that to the available species nutritional values from the Namaqualand region. Okay. So the study area is in Lillefontein in Polshoek, which is a communal area in the Namaqualand region and in the Northern Cape province. So this area is identified as semi-arid to arid with a Mediterranean climate, where we see where we have dry and warm summers and cold and wet winters. So this area has a strong seasonal rainfall with limited water supply, but there are available water sources that can be extracted from boreholes and also provided by the municipality. So in this area, livestock production is the dominant agricultural practice, and it comprises mostly of sheep, goat, as well as some cattle. And on the picture, with the tanks, that's to show the borehole where they extracted the water from underground. Okay. So for what we did in the study, we evaluated barley for the fodder, and barley has been shown as the best crop for the fodder production. So what we did is with the seeds, we washed the seeds with tap water, and then after that, to get rid of any dirt, and then after that, we soaked the seeds in a bleach solution so that we can get rid of any fungi intrusion. And then after it was washed, after it was soaked in a bleach solution, it was further rinsed with clean water to get rid of any bleach residues. And so we planted these seeds in aluminum trays, which were also disinfected with the bleach solution and rinsed off afterwards as well. And then the experiment continued for 10 days in a glass house with a natural daylight cycles. And then we had 4 water sources. So we had collected water from the Namaqualand area. We collected the municipal water as well as the borehole water from Namaqualand. And then we had water with a fertilizer solution. And then we had a distilled water as the control. And then each water treatment had 5 replicates. So what we did on a daily basis, we took their height. We took 3 replicates in each tray to determine the average height or the average growth. And then the biochemical measurements as well as the nutrient composition were done at the ARC labs as well as the Western Cape Department of Agriculture labs at Elsenburg. And then with the results that we found that using the different water treatments on the barley fodder did not affect its growth. And from the graph, we can see that of which it was expected that the fertilizer will obviously have will enhance the growth of the fodder compared to the other water sources. However, the water sources from Namaqualand were also however the growth that was obtained using the water from Namaqualand also did not differ significantly from the other water sources. And then from there, what we did is we looked at the fresh mess, and we can see from the results that almost all the fresh mess was almost 4 times than from the seed to the fresh mess, because we had the same seed mess, which was about 238 grams. And then this is the fresh mess at day 10. And then so in all the water sources that we used, there was significant loss on dry matter content from seed to sprouts. as the hydroponics use stored energy and the essential minerals to grow. However, the losses that were observed in this table make up for the more valuable nutrients as well as the protein and fiber content. And then now that there were no significant differences in the water collected from Namaqualand as well as the other water sources, we filtered out the other water sources and only looked and only compared the fodder that was produced using the water sources from Namaqualand. And from here, we looked at the protein as well as the fiber content, and we saw that the protein content that was produced from the fodder from Namaqualand water sources, that it was way higher than the protein content that's available during the dry season in the Namaqualand region, as well as the wet season, as well as the protein content of the valuable diets in the wet season in Namaqualand. And also we further looked at the fiber content, which refers to the structural composition of plants, and that is the ATF as well as the NTF. And then we saw that the low values, of ATF and NTF, they means that there's high digestibility, intake as well as energy. So if a fodder or forage has high digestibility, that means it's easier for the animal to eat more of that fodder, and then therefore they are going to acquire more energy. And also we observed that there are increases in the dry digestive matter as well as the total digestible nutrients. And then we further compared the mineral nutrients. We further compared the mineral nutrients that were found in the hydroponic barley to that of the rangelands, and we saw that the hydroponic barley did not meet all the minimum requirements, and also that they were less than that of the rangelands. But both the mineral nutrients from the rangeland as well as the barley were also way less than they did not meet the minimum requirements for livestock productivity. And also what we noticed was the sodium in the hydroponic barley that was observed to be way above the recommended rate, but still the concentration is still within the tolerable levels, and this is due to the groundwater salinity as well. So what we're concluding on is that hydroponic barley can be used as a supplementary feed, and it is a one piece of a puzzle because it does produce a source of protein, and also but it cannot meet all the nutritional requirements, and also it can plug some of the nutrient deficiencies as well as protein deficiencies during a drought period, where these could lead to poor livestock health as well as reproductive incapabilities. However, in some of the research that we did is that we found that the hydroponic fodder barley cannot fill the late fodder gap, which is during March and May, because of delayed rainfall and high temperatures. But during that time, it can also provide fodder for early lambing and also help with milk production, youngster development stages, as well as the recovery of the mother. But then now that the hydroponic barley is sensitive to temperatures and cannot be produced during a peak summer period, and what can be done? So now this prompts for a further research. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Imanati. Time for questions for Imanati. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I understand the objective of the study was to test the different water sources, but maybe you can answer a question for me because I'm not quite clear about that. With the exception of better digestibility, what is the positive in feeding the barley sprouts as opposed to feeding barley seeds? Because there's only energy exchange. from the seed, it has to use energy to germinate, and it isn't allowed enough time to photosynthesize. So there's no extra sugars or energy. So apart from the digestibility, what is the other positives of feeding the barley sprouts?
Okay. So in other studies that have been conducted, so it has been shown that protein content as well as energy are the limiting factors in livestock production. So with the hydroponic fodder is that we're trying to meet the protein content. And then if there are other deficiencies, then you can use other alternative means of supplementary feed.
Okay, another question.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to just check, it's just out of interest, the cost of the barley seed versus now the forage biomass which you get. In your results, you had something like 147 grams. I just want to see a tray gives you how many seeds do you put? How many, let's say, grams do you put in a tray, and then probably how much forage, dry matter do you get from a tray? Those results of 147 grams are for, is that tray or what?
Yes, that is per tray. So in each of the trays, in each of the replicates, we put in 238 grams of a seed. And then the result that I've showed is the fresh mess that is at the day 10 where everything has grown or where we have terminated the trials.
Yeah, so the seeds is how many grams?
It was 238 grams.
Then
so because we had small aluminum trays, so we wanted the seeds not to be stacked because once they are all stacked up and then they won't be able to grow and germinate.
Okay, then the dry matter from that tray, it's roughly how many grams?
Can I go back?
No problem. No problem. Then if you need more,
okay.
Then you will ask. We still have time for discussion and
okay.
everything.
No, that's
okay. Wait. Last question. If there is a last one, the last one.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question I want to add. I think on the presentation, the concept is to address the problem of poor quality feed available on small scale farmers in the region, in the area where the study was conducted. Now, if you look at the nutritive value of the material, the grass that is available at that time, relative in comparison with the sprout, it clearly shows that it contributes in terms of the protein in the animals. Of course, the feeding trial that I did before, the one that I was presenting, we were looking at the effect of feeding that green fodder, which is high in moisture content, in terms of influencing the intake of a dry matter, of a dry stuff, which is what the small scale farmers are facing on. So now, producing a barley sprout at that age, at that period, it's critically important for the animals to have protein that will trigger your rumen fermentation, which only act when the protein at least is 7% of the feed.
Okay.
Yes.
As the chair, I will stop you there. We still have time for discussion. I'm in charge. Okay. Let's. Our next presenter, who will be presenting a short presentation, by the name of Sive Thokozayo. The presentation is all about evaluation of communal rangeland condition, case study of Santombe village and others. You continue.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Sive. I'm currently working in the SNK as a production scientist. This is basically the case study of Santombe. Chair, you didn't show me how to operate this thing. Oh. Basically, this is my outline for my presentation. And basically, this is what triggers us to conduct the study. I'm sure some of you will remember that headline. The goat that gives birth five kids. One goat give birth, delivering 5 kids. It was something which were not familiar in the province. It was very rare situation. The scientists were also shocked by the situation, the Alma scientists. The doctors were shocked. And also the farmers were shocked as well. Interesting. And our principal, the politicians, they said, guys, please go there. You must do something. You can't just sit in the office. Go there, go there, go there. We were like, hey, what are we going to do there? And then we decided, no, let's go and look the vegetation, look at the grass layer, look at the woody layer. So basically, we feel that it's still important to also look at the field condition, because to understand and manage the ecosystem is very important. And also it helps in terms of conversation, planning and sustainable use of natural resources. Our study was to determine the species composition of both grasses and woody layer, and also to look at the bush density and also look at the browsing unit. And this is where the study was conducted in Mountain Leaf. Mountain Leaf is between the Mount Fletcher and the Cookstad. This is where the study was conducted. As you can see, the coordinates. This is where we laid. How many transect we laid? 4 transect there. Our transect were 100 meter by 3. And then within those transect, we counted the woody plants to determine the woody plants density. We also measured the height, diameter, and the LPM to determine the browsing unit. Within each transect, we also counted around 100 points to actually determine the species composition of grasses. After we've taken the coordinates of that area, we find that the area in terms of the field type, the area it falls under the East equivalent, the area that we surveyed. But because we're guided by farmers, they said, no, guys, this is the area where these goats are browsing. So please look at this area. Don't go to some other areas. We did exactly that. When you look at it, we discover that, there's also a Drakensberg foothill field type, and also there's a Eastern Valley bush. So it was really interesting. The collected data, remember, though, in this all the data that we collected within those transect, we captured in Excel, and we also calculated the relative abundance using that formula, and also the tree density, and also the browsing unit. Yes, the transect was 100 by 3, and then of course we converted that into hectares. I'm not going to dwell much on that. When we look at the results, Asperboreus africanus was one of the species which was dominating in the area, and also the Eracrostis plana was one of the grasses which was dominating the area. Aristida congesta. So the majority of the grasses which were dominating the area were white grasses. When we look at the woody plants, so we discovered that Rhamnus was one of the species which was dominant in site 1, in transect 1, and also the Scutia metin. When we look at site 2, we discovered that the Rhamnus was also in abundance, and also the Sesial lucida. In site 4, we discovered that the Acacia caru and also the Scutia metina was one of the dominant species. When we look and overall the uri plants which were there, we discovered that the majority of the uri plants which were there were browsable, and most of them has got no thorns, as you can see in terms of the spikes. The majority of them, except the one which was highly palatable, the Scutia metina. As you know, the hooks, but we believe that the goats can adjust to those spikes of that. This basically, this is, we also looked at the density. We discovered that there is a possibility of encroachment when we look at the density of these plants. We also look at the browsing unit, but the majority of the woody plants were available for the goats to browse because the majority, they were within 1.5 meters in terms of height. It means then that they were available for goats to browse. In terms of abundance, as I've already alluded that when we look at the abundance of increased species, we've seen that there is poor management. We suspected that the veld is not poorly managed. The uncontrolled grazing, remember this study was done in a communal setup, there is no camps, and the veld is shared, and there's no issue of a stocking rate, grazing capacity whatsoever. People are just throwing the animals. Everyone has an equal right on the grazeland, so there's no owner. There is even the chief. Now they are no longer care about this thing. And we also seen that the rhamnus is beginning to spread in an area, and remember this plant is not acceptable, so it's starting to encroach the area. So we also advise the farmers to at least to try to clear this plant if it's possible. In terms of the balance, in terms of the species which are acceptable and non-acceptable, at least 64% were acceptable. So we asked the farmers to give the livestock numbers. They said no. The only thing which they said no, guys, you can measure the veld so that you can have the extent of the grazing area, but they said no, we don't give people our livestock numbers. We don't trust you guys. So we decided to use other technique, because remember, for the species composition we used the step point, and then we decided to change to use the visual assessment, because the visual assessment, you don't need the livestock numbers, you only look at the indicators, your parcel cover, vegetation cover, the species diversity, and then after that you add those percentages. You look at encroachment, you add the percentages, and also you add that will give you the veld condition score, and that you correlate that with the rainfall, and then you get the grazing capacity of an area without using the livestock area. Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sive. It was no longer a short presentation, it was a long presentation, but I just allow him to continue because we'll be moving to discussion. He's lucky because he's the last presenter for this session. Then let me allow people to ask questions. First question there, or that? Yes, okay. Can start.
Thanks, Sive, for that nice presentation. I just wanted to check, since you said that the study was triggered by the multiple kitting of the goat, and I just wanted to check if was there any correlation between what you surveyed on the veld and the multiple kitting of the goat. Was that as a result of the condition of the veld, or it was just something that happened accidentally?
Yes, thanks, Doc. When we look at this vegetation, Doc, we discover that the plants that were there, even if we look at the woody plants and the grasses, these were the species which you can find in some other areas. So we did not find anything which was surprising that could lead to these goats having that to improve their conception rate. So there is nothing that we find from our side. But we only look at what is there. We couldn't find anything which was surprising.
Yeah, we disappointed. We thought you were going to tell us which special plant was going to give rise to high kidding of goats. But yeah, anyway, but it's an interesting thing about these communal rangelands. We have a lot of them in Botswana, and again, I notice very bad degradation because you're not getting good management, because it's difficult for people to manage in communal rangelands. So I think this is something that really we need to come up with an answer to. How can communal rangelands be managed to give rise to better rangeland condition? So it's an important topic that I think we really need to try and address somehow. Some institution, some way of doing it with communities that they can work together, to try and manage these rangelands. Yeah, have you got any ideas on that, by the way?
Okay, thanks. I can relieve you. Okay, thanks, Sive, for your interesting presentation. Then I will open this time for discussions. So we can start the discussions. So, okay, I will just start the back there.
Thank you, Chairperson. Even though I wanted to ask the last presenter, so it will form part of the discussion.
It's not a problem. He's still going to answer as long as I open the time for discussions.
All right. So since there was nothing from the vegetation side that's related to the giving birth to 5 kids, I propose or suggest that why can't the scientists that side look into the issue of breed, the type of breed that of those goats, and maybe also checking even the maize during that period.
Okay, that's the question directed to Sive.
Can I respond?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I think because I'm not an animal scientist, I believe that the animal scientists are also trying to look at the breeding. But the problem with the communal setup, we have these goats which are so-called nondescripts. So it's difficult to say, no, this one's a poor goat, this one it's a Angola goat. So, but I'm of the view that maybe the animal scientists might have a look at that. And again, my interest was that I wonder these kids, all of them, they managed to survive. I'm also interested to know that as well. But maybe the animal scientists might give something on that one that you've asked.
Okay, another.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, maybe should I put it as a kind of a suggestion, because I'm a little bit curious either or whether the multiple kidding is it a common thing in the area? That goats that are there, it's most of them they are giving multiple kidding, or is it the first person asked that, is it a certain breed and a certain farmer or communal farmers? Because that plays a factor to say, for example, traditionally, I grew up in rural areas. There's something, I don't have an English word of it. There's something that we used to prepare to give the males so that they will be active during breeding season. So that thing, you might find that information is only locked up to a particular family or a particular whatever that can use that, which might result to that. So the question is that, I don't know, it's not a question, but it would be better in future to look, is it a common thing in the area? Or is it only to a particular farmer that receive such a multiple kidding, because that has a certain factor on the issue of multiple kidding.
Yeah. Okay. I want to answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in a process of developing a research project that will be looking at the reason for multiple or high number of kidding in communal areas with a very low winning percentage. Because in those areas, we'll find out that, if, like Useve was saying, those goats will give that high number of kidding percentage. But when it comes to winning, they don't win the number that they get during the kidding season. Yes, it's a common, it's something that is common in those areas where you will find that the goats will give 2 kids or 3. 3 might be the maximum in most cases. But they don't win all of them in most cases. Sometimes, even if you get 1 kid, that that single kid will die before it is weaned. So there is that challenge in most farmers in those areas. Like you were saying, I know of something they call indololwan. They give it to goats to make sure that they conceive and they give those multiple kids, but they don't manage them well during until the winning stage. I think colleague from Kwamhlabuya Lingana can assist us in some of the traditional methods that they use in those areas.
Okay, I will give this one a chance.
For Imanati from Donna, were the water sources tested in a lab? Which water source had high minerals or salinity?
Would you please give a microscope there? Microphone, sorry. Time to wake up, ne?
Thank you for the question, Donna. Yes, the water sources from Namaqualand were tested, and the pH was still within the acceptable range for livestock consumption, and also only the groundwater had high salinity, and then the municipal water had high chlorine content in it.
Another question?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I just know the overall for me.
Okay. There is a hand there.
All right. My question also goes to Imanati. I wanted to find out which fertilizer did you mix with the water? What I remember one of your treatment, you had water mixed with some fertilizer. So which one was that? And also the number of days. So does it mean that these sprouts are ready for consumption by animals within the 10-day period, or it was just for the period was just for the experimental purposes?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the first one. So we use a Gssac59 fertilizer that for hydroponics, and then this, and then the second question is, so once you go over the 10-day threshold, and then that's where the nutrient content starts to decrease. So remember, as I mentioned that the seeds use their stored energy as well as their essential minerals. So once on that 10-day, that's when they reach their peak, and then after that, then it starts to decrease. So that means the nutritional quality will be affected as well.
Okay. Another hand. Is there anyone who want to say something? Let me just. Okay, there's another hand here.
I was just wondering though, with your hydroponic thing, how much forage, can you grow for? How many goats would that support, or how many sheep would one of those trays support? Can you grow enough to make it viable to actually improve production?
Yes, you can grow it enough to make it viable for production. It's just that this was to test the effect or how does the water sources affect the growth as well as the nutritional quality, since we're going to implement this project in that area. So the only available water sources were those. So we wanted to see how it's going to be affected. And then after that, we're going to introduce it to the temperatures in the Namaqualand region, and also to see how is it affected. And then later on, we can also just look at its water use efficiency, as well as maybe if we do an if our ethics application gets approved, then we can look at the effect on livestock production as well.
Okay, there's there.
Just adding on what she's saying. For example, the same the same study that I conducted at ARC, we use a tray of about 80 centimeter by 45 centimeter. We put a seed on dry weight of 1 kilogram. In 7 days to 8 days, it was between 6.5 to 7 kilogram in fresh mess basis. Now that you can feed between 2 and 3 animals. If you feed roughly on fresh mess, you feed about between 1.8 and 2 kilogram of the fresh materials. But I want to stress this on top of that, is that the point of hydroponic sprout is not to use it as a sole feed or as a basal diet, is to use it as a one to provide nutrients, particularly protein. In addition to that, to provide the green material that will with water moisture content, high moisture content into it, that will improve or enhance the intake of a dry matter stuff, based on the fact that in the rumen, once there's more water substance, the animal will eat more dry stuff. And in eating that, as I was presenting there, it allows the animal to use the nutrients effectively for its growth. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any hand? So in the absence of hands, then I will end this session, but not exactly ending. We are ending the presentations and the discussions. Then at 16:30, there will be a poster session with cheese and wine to warm our body. Then I would like to thank all our presenters and participants. I enjoyed the privilege of being a chair. It was not like in the parliament where the Speaker of Parliament will be dealing with point of orders. I thank you.